Is there too many, like Oxycontins being produced for the amount of people that need it? I mean, is it somehow it's getting out there elsewhere? Where are the doctors crooked, some of them? I mean, obviously, it's, it's maybe not the same ethics that they had, 30 years ago.
I think there's a lot of reasons why we are where we are. Some of them you mentioned, sure, there are some crooked doctors, just like there's crooked everything, policemen, priests, whatever, teachers, right? So that exists, I think, in every profession. But I think the real reason, the sort of why we got to where we got is because about 15 years ago, there was a big push to really address pain in this country. And there was recognition that we were under-treating pain. And so this big push led pain to be what we call the fifth vital sign. And that meant that every single time anybody came in to any medical facility, they were asked, what is your pain on a scale of 1 to 10, right? If you've ever been in every single person is asked that question. Exactly, right. And that became part of regulations that we had to do that in medical facilities in order to get accreditation nationally. So when you measure something, you manage something, right? So then every single person would mark, oh, I'm a 5 out of 10, or I'm a 7 out of 10, or I'm a 3 out of 10, and then all of a sudden, the medical providers say, well, now I need to do something about that. And opiates are fabulous in terms of providing pain relief, at least in the short term. And what we thought was that people wouldn't get addicted to them.
It's kind of silly, leaving it up to people to determine, everybody's different with the pain tolerance.
Yeah, right. And we still ask this question. We still ask this question all the time. And so this is really what I think was sort of part of the fuel, was that everybody was being asked a question, pain was being measured. Providers were marketed that the opiates were not, problematic. There was a lot of pharmaceutical companies then producing a lot of opiates and really doing a lot of marketing. And, all of a sudden the amount of opiates that were prescribed skyrocketed. Now, part of the issue about the heroin is that as we were in the middle of this opioid epidemic, what we've clearly realized that this is a problem. And so now there's a lot of work to backpedal, right? So to no longer prescribe the opiates to people for pain. And so I don't think India showed you this curve, but what we see in terms of the opiate-related overdose deaths is that those that are related to pills have now leveled off. They're not increasing. But the unintended consequence is that heroin use is now increasing. And so what I think has happened is we've created essentially a group of people who are really dependent on these pills, and doctors have now stopped prescribing the pills. And now, emergency rooms and everybody is aware that there's this issue, and so there's a lot more concern about prescribing medication. And so now people still have the problems, they're sort of craving it, they have the opiate withdrawal syndrome, et cetera, and now we're moving towards heroin. Heroin is now cheaper, it's now more pure, and so perhaps it's easier to get now that fewer and fewer doctors are really willing to prescribe the medication. And now we have legislation in New York State, in fact, this is just within the last 8 weeks, there's now legislation that says that when somebody comes in with new pain, that providers can only prescribe up to 7 days worth of opiates. So there's a lot of efforts to now undo what we've done, and I think there's some unintended consequences in terms of what's happening because of that.
So the fight will be against heroin. I'm just saying, that's something that's not controlled.
Right. Right.